मर्ज में मुब्तला हैं और वो रेडिएशन के लिए गई हुई हैं, तो बड़ा डिफिकल्ट होता है, पूरा घर इसमें इन्वॉल्व हो जाता है। तो आप सब एक घर की तरह हैं और हम सब ने अपने इस घर को, जो हमारा पाकिस्तान है, इसको बेहतर बनाना है मिलके, अपने लोगों के मसाइल कम कर
one place. It's really, really fantastic. We also work a lot with the Ministry of Commerce here, with the provincial government, the provincial government of Balochistan, to try to improve the business environment for small companies. That means to improve, for instance, their access to inputs, to improve their access to finance, to formalize those companies that are not formal, and to modernize policies, for instance, on how agricultural markets work. So that's the GRASP project, and we're not doing it alone either. We've got partners, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund. We work with the SME Development Authority of Pakistan, and we've got, I think, 10 or 12 other partners that are out in the regions. And it's through this network and through the partnerships that we're really able to achieve the outcomes that we're achieving. So why are we here today? That's the big question. And what are you going to hear about over the next couple of hours? The world for exporters is changing very rapidly. And we've seen my career over 30 years, never have I seen things evolving this quickly. Right now, in the European Union, we talk about that because that's a market we work in. But they represent the change that is coming. And that change is towards sustainability, both from an environmental and a social standpoint. So there's this wave coming. It starts with the Europeans going to go to major markets. And this is going to require all of us, wherever we work, to be able to demonstrate our climate impact, to demonstrate our environmental footprint, to demonstrate how we treat our workers. And it's going to require us to be able to comply with and comply with practices that are required, practices that consumers are asking for, but also practices that will be an entry barrier eventually into the markets that we want to serve. Now, for us, one side is compliance. You have to do these things to get into this market. But the other side is, ultimately, the more you're able to understand, measure, and improve your environmental footprint, the more to understand, measure, and improve your climate impact, the more you're able to treat your workers in a way where they can be productive, where they can be autonomous, the more competitive you will be in these markets. Those folks who understand this and lean into it will be the ones that win in the markets to come. They'll also be the ones that will be most resilient as we're facing much more volatility due to climate change and as we're facing rapidly evolving markets. So today is about that. How do we seize the opportunity in a market like the European Union? Very high standards, but also very high. First one is really about market entry. How do you find buyers? How do you communicate with them? What kinds of information do they want to know? How do you segment? This is a big market of, it's 500 to 700 million people. How do you segment this market? And how do you ultimately conquer the market, enter, and make some profitable sales? The second part will be more what I just mentioned, which is how do you comply with the coming regulations of the European Union? And in particular, my colleague Melissa is going to talk to us about the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. And this is essentially a requirement that you report on those things I just mentioned: social issues, environmental issues, climate issues. So we'll talk about two things: how to enter the market and how to comply with market requirements. Once we've done that, my colleague Asipian is going to come up here and he's going to help
Self and delve into the talk.
Yes. And can you just confirm that you can see my screen? All is okay. Yes, I see. I see a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to all. So my name is Miss Frédérique Derlot. I work at obviously, if we look at the EU, is 900 million consumers. It's just not. It's not one size fits all. It's like Asia or South America. So you have what is in here is the
regarding the ISO certifications, but is there a special mechanism which we can use so the consumer, whether in our country or in Europe, can trace the traceability of the product regarding the sustainability or the organic nature of the product?
Thank you so much. As you say, as I mentioned in my presentation, traceability is a key element nowadays. Traceability, you can export fresh fruit and veg towards the European market without being certified. You can export processed agri-food. The EU is not asking you to be certified. The EU is asking you to be responsible for your traceability. So if you are a processor, for instance, you need to keep records. You don't need to be HACCP certified, but you need to be able to show that if there's any issue, whether it's microbiological, whether it's MIL, you can track it down back to your supply source. So there is some flexibility in terms of the buyer, depending who you sell to. And they will say, if you are working on your traceability and you're not Global Gap certified, but you're working towards that, they would hear that. They would understand that. But you need to say, we're working on it. In the next 6 months or for the next export season, we will be Global Gap certified. So
regulations for carbon emissions, and if left unchecked, the economic repercussions are going to be severe for Pakistani traders. For that, I'd like to invite Ms. Melissa Mukanga. She is the advisor on responsible business conduct and inclusive value chains. We'll have a quick session and then we'll jump into question and answer from our traders. Over to you, Melissa.
Can you hear me, first of all?
You're audible. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Greetings to Karachi. I hope next time I'll be able to join in person. To my person, I've been in the agri-business value chains for almost 15 years, working mostly in coffee. I've had the privilege of working both in the EU, in Germany, with a multinational company, but also the last 6 years in Uganda directly with smallholder coffee farmers. So in the last 1.5 years, it has been about mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence. So this presentation will give you an introduction. My colleague Fredrine did a wonderful job of already touching on the EU Green Deal and opening up on what it actually means for the fruit and vegetable sector. And I will spend some time on looking at the specific due diligence, human rights and environmental due diligence, and the work that ITC has been doing around this. Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. The aim of this directive is to foster sustainable and responsible corporate behavior in companies, operations, and across their global value chains. The new rules will ensure that companies in scope identify and address adverse human rights and environmental impacts of their actions and inside and outside of Europe. So, and the other point is really to look to ensure that these due diligence requirements are harmonized across the EU member states, and there's a level playing field for companies that operate within the EU market. The scope, so the directive does not seek to redefine what human rights is or environmental protection. It actually makes reference to international conventions, and Pakistan has agreed and ratified some of these conventions. There's a whole annex, which is Annex 1, which makes reference to these conventions. So just so you know that they are not creating new definitions. It's just looking at what is the net turnover within the EU. Third group of companies is companies that are in franchising or have licensing agreements in the EU, both EU and non-EU companies, and whose royalties make up over 2.25 million on net worldwide, net worldwide, yes. In the last financial year. So let me explain this. So for EU companies, it's royalties of 22.5 million worldwide, and for non-EU companies, it's over 80 million in the last financial year within the EU. Now, you may ask, why should this be important for me? This is for large-scale European companies. Now, there is an important addition in this directive that says in-scope companies are required to implement due diligence obligations. We'll get to that right now in their own operations, but also their chain of activities. And I will read this text. It's pretty small. It's upstream business partners related to the production of goods or the provision of services, including the design, extraction, sourcing, manufacture, transport, storage, and supply of raw materials, products, or parts of the product, and development of the product or the service, and downstream business partners related to the distribution, transport, and storage of the product, where the business partner carry out those activities for the company or on behalf of the company. This basically means that within my supply chain, I have to ensure that my business partners are also have due diligence processes in place. And as Fredrine showed us that, many companies require you to sign code of conducts. There are certain standards that they need to see. And this is already in preparation for this legislation. So how does human rights and environmental due diligence work? Many of us are familiar with certification schemes. You have a set of criteria, different areas. You have an audit, maybe an annual audit that comes along, and there's a pass or fail. Now, environmental due diligence does not work like that. It is a continuous process. We start with stage 1, which is ensuring that one has policies and management systems in place for responsible business conduct. One of these, for example, would be a code of conduct. And it's not only just having a document, but ensuring that this code of conduct is enforced. The second point is to look at, to identify and assess adverse impact. So it's really looking at the high risk impact in operations, in supply chains, and in business relationships. So, and this is where saying that, it's not only within their own operations for the in-scope companies, but also looking at their suppliers. So
It's 4 p.m.
to ensure that they are functioning. The second stage is to the third stage is to, having identified these adverse impacts, is to either cease, prevent, or mitigate them. So depending on what kind they are, you want to make sure that you're able to eliminate them or address them correctly. The fourth step is really looking at a monitoring system, ensuring that once you have put provisions in place, that they are working properly, and if not, you're adjusting them accordingly and presenting the results on a regular basis. Fifth, Fedrine also gave us an example with EOSTAR about communicating your impact, showing your consumers, showing your partners that you're addressing the most adverse impacts and how you're doing it. And then sixth, which is really something that is depending on what kind of impact it is to either to provide or to provide some sort of remediation. For example, if you have a situation where there was land grabbing and communities were displaced, that they are compensated. So there you would have a situation that you're going straight from identifying the cause to addressing it and not going around the system. And the idea is that you start with the most adverse impact, and then as you address them, you start to deal with the less adverse impacts. This is a participatory exercise, so it's not something that you do alone. It is not something where management sits in a room and says, okay, let's write up the code of conduct, and then we can show it to our customers. But rather, this is something that together with your team, you work on maybe the code of conduct, you implement it, you discuss with your customers and say, this is what's required. Maybe looking at the laws and regulations of the country, what is required? Am I adhering to them? Is it reflected in my business conduct? So looking at specifically the SME business partners in the chain of activities or the supply chain, the expectation is that SMEs will not have a higher burden due to due diligence processes that are now required of in-scope companies. So the criteria is whatever is expected of SMEs is fair, is reasonable, and does not discriminate. So not discriminate that they're not able to do business anymore. It is expected that companies provide support to SMEs in the form of resources and knowledge to help them meet these due diligence requirements and code of conduct expectations. So it's really a collaborative effort to ensure that responsible business is happening and that the code of conduct are adhered to. So one of the ways to do this is to provide capacity building opportunities, trainings, templates, upgrading management systems that also allow suppliers to input their information, financing support through conducive agreements that gives them long-term financing or sourcing agreements, assistance to secure financing so that they're able to implement due diligence processes. The other thing is the costs of independent third-party compliance verification should not be borne by the SMEs. So any audits of the due diligence process, those should be borne by the in-scope companies. And the other thing that is important to note is that in-scope companies are required to focus on high-risk business partners. So if you're working in an area, you're working with partners where it's clear that, for example, child labor is always is a high risk. that is where you focus your attention, and don't give a further administrative burden to suppliers who already have a good sustainability system in place. So if we look at the implementation timeline, the consultations for the adoption of the corporate sustainability due diligence were concluded in May. The directive came into force on July 25th this year. And from that time, the member state countries have 2 years to transpose this into their national legislation. I said this at the beginning, that a directive is agreed upon at the European Commission level, but each member state country then has to transpose it into their national legislation. So you will find that there may be some variances from country to country. So if you're exporting to Italy, might have other requirements than if you're exporting to Germany. Thereafter, the first group of companies, so with a threshold of 5,000 plus employees, will start having to comply with these requirements in 2027. A year later, the companies with an employee threshold of 3,000 and above will also need to apply, and then from 2029, July, all groups will need to apply. Will need to fulfill the requirements of the corporate sustainability directive, or rather what the legislation in the respective member states. In 2030, the European Commission will review the implementation of the directive and decide on how it continues. Now we go to the impact. Now, this legislation has both positive and negative impacts. For one, it is an opportunity for actors, for value chain operators that are already doing quite a bit of work in the sustainability area, especially when it comes to human rights and environmental due diligence. This can be a comparative advantage, that they're able to communicate it and they become more attractive for European importers. So as Frederina already showed us, the export potential, that you see that you're not yet, that you have quite a bit of room to grow to access the European market. It is an opportunity to improve production processes at origin. So looking at how the workers' rights, the wages, looking at environmental protection. So it's something that will serve in improving business conditions. The due diligence process, as I said earlier, there is a need for collaboration. You cannot do this in isolation. So this will actually promote more partnership, that businesses, buyers and sellers are talking to each other, are forming a better understanding, especially when it comes to arbitration, to actually say, what is the reality in rural Pakistan? What are the requirements of my buyer? And working together to bridge the gap. It promotes the transition to sustainable value chain. So I think it's clear that all of us want to see human rights and environmental protection at the forefront. The climate change, as was mentioned earlier, is impacting Pakistan, like many countries and emerging economies, very much. So this is the right thing to do. The other thing, and this came a bit later within the discussions, was that in-scope companies are now expected to use their influence to address living income and living wages. So actually looking at improving the situation of workers, not only in their own countries, but where production happens. The concerns are that companies will choose to actually go to destinations that are low risk. So where I know that I will not have compliance issues. I do not have to invest additional resources. This will, in effect, make vulnerable, weaker actors, they potentially leave them behind. And then, of course, there's the cost. Who carries the cost for these changes? Who carries the cost for implementing functional due diligence systems? Now, I would like to talk about the pilots on accompanying measures. This was an initiative, a partnership between the European Union, the Organization of African, Caribbean, Pacific States, the Secretariat, ITC, and the Latin American and Caribbean Network of Fair Trade, small producers, and workers. So it was really looking at saying, fine, these due diligence processes need to, this legislation is coming, but what are the accompanying measures required so that it is implemented successfully and leaves nobody behind? The CSDDD, or Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence pilots, were implemented in 8 countries. So we had, and 3 value chains. We American and Caribbean Network of Fair Trade, small producers and workers, CLAC for short. They led 4 pilots in Honduras and Brazil in the coffee value chain, and Peru and Dominican Republic in the cocoa value chain. Now, as you see, all these logos is just to show that this was a collaborative effort from the European Commission to the Fair Trade Label to ICEAL, the Alliance of certification bodies, but also in country we had the regulators like the Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority or the Ugandan Coffee Development Authority, and then we had SMEs like the Far East Textiles working together and looking at what is needed. This list is definitely not exhaustive, but it's just to give you an insight that a lot of actors, stakeholders within the respective value chains contributed to these efforts. So what were these pilots all about? So this is an illustration just showing you that it was very dynamic. We had a stakeholder mapping, we had a capacity and diagnostics, so readiness assessments looking at where do the MSMEs, where do value chain operators stand right now in regards to due diligence? And there are 3 dimensions. It's really environmental, social, and governance. And then looking at, so how do we support them with these once their status has been identified? When we started off, many stakeholders didn't know very much about mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence. So it was more starting off convening stakeholders and having consultations, raising awareness, and then moving on to developing roadmaps to compliance around accompanying measures. So here we had many results out of the pilots, but I've just brought you a selection. I talked about the ESG readiness assessment. So really ESG is environmental, social, and governance. And here it was a questionnaire that was given provided to value chain operators for them to, first of all, understand which dimensions are going to be looked at within the due diligence process. So under environment, you have the carbon footprint, you have water use. The social aspects are really, what's your board made up of? How many women are there? Under governance, you had issues like, is there freedom of association, working hours? So some of the things that Federine already talked about and that we see in certification requirements. And so on one hand, one looked at where are companies today, as if we recall, due diligence is not about a pass or fail, but it's rather how far am I in my due diligence journey. So looking at what's the maturity of these companies, and then looking at what's the risk level. So, for example, when we look at code of conduct, here, 44% were unaware or didn't have a code of conduct, and that's a high risk level that is not attractive if you're wanting to export to the European market. So having a code of conduct is very important. After having this assessment, we had recommendations, implementation plans, and work together with these companies to get to really fill those gaps and make sure that they have due diligence processes, or to help them to have due diligence processes in place. So, for example, those that didn't have a code of conduct, to go through, how do I develop a code of conduct, and then develop the code of conduct, and then actually implement it. Because as we know, it's one thing to have a document, it's quite another thing to have it enforced. What was interesting, for example, in Uganda, we had the subsidiaries of multinationals really being able to coach and talk with smaller SMEs who, aggregators who supply them, and support them in this process. So this goes back to the collaborative spirit that is required in due diligence. Then another output was a practical guide for implementing human rights and environmental due diligence within a pharma organization. So really breaking down these steps that we saw that are required, these due diligence steps, and saying, what does that mean in my organization? In this case, it was, what's the step? What's the purpose? The first step is to raise awareness. Then looking at what are the resources that I require, which team needs to be present, the budget, and setting a schedule, and then also looking at what are the documents. And then step by step, going through the process to ensure that there is a due diligence happening and one is taking the entire organization along. So it's not something that happens in a management room, in a boardroom, but rather this is for the entire organization. Last but not least, we have developed, and I will share this with the organizers so that you can have this as a reference document. We've developed a summary document that documents the methodology, really the how to address this topic. To, first of all, what is mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence? What are the accompanying measures? How do I start to co-create? How do I start to develop a roadmap in achieving compliance? We also, of course, put in the output. So what is it that we did? I've mentioned only 3 right here, but we also helped the different value chains create national value chain action plans. So we've seen that for Uganda and for Ethiopia, they're using these national action plans to go towards compliance, to mobilize resources, and then to raise awareness. So even dialoguing with the European Commission to say, okay, this is what we're doing, these are our challenges. And then it also brought the entire sector together. So knowing that due diligence cannot be done individually, it cannot be done in silos. You had the traders talking to the producers, really had everybody at the table. And this is this document shows this. There's very little information on, or there was little information on corporate sustainability, the directive, and also on the regulation for deforestation. There was really a demand for this. So we've also got a fact sheet that outlines the key points. And to date, we've been able to, to share this document with over 5,000 people, and they're using it effectively. So if we are to look at what are the key successes out of the pilots, what we saw when it comes to accompanying measures, when it comes to legislation like this, what is required is not just a top-down, the legislation is coming, but rather both a bottom-up and a top-down. We need to have everybody's voices heard. So, and in talking to the relevant authorities, having the regulators in the room, having value chain operators in the room. So not only the bigger companies, the plantations, but also the smallholder producers, the advocacy groups, and the support and the business support organizations, because value chain operators, especially MSMEs, will require support in implementing due diligence. We also saw that it was very important to have a platform, a neutral platform that allows everyone to speak. And I must say, in my engagements we had, while there was a lot of plenary dialogue, there was also a lot of bilateral meetings. I'm sure you're aware of power dynamics, so really ensuring that nobody is left behind and everybody's input is considered. So having this participatory approach and allowing for dialogue. And when we started and we presented this directive to the different countries and to the stakeholders, and there was first a huge imposition. They're like, what is the EU doing? Why is it doing this? We're already struggling with getting the right price, and there's so many standards, and it's so difficult. And now this, I mean, they're going to take us out of business. But then at the end, by the time we got to the action plans, we were seeing that even the regulators, so government representatives, saying, you know what, this is not about the EU, this is about us. Our environment is most important to us. Our children, if we think about human rights, these are our children. This is important to us. So this serves us. And regardless, at the time, it wasn't clear whether the directive was to be approved. They said whether or not, we will continue following the action plans that we have developed. I think the other thing is really to harness support. There's need for financing at different levels, whether it's financing smallholder producers who in some contexts are not well organized and are in remote areas. So looking at how can we reach them, but also SMEs who need capacity building, who finances that, who supports that. So having an action plan, having financial partners in the room, donor agencies in the room who are able to support these efforts is very, very important. Last but not least, it's also the importance of considering living income, that unless we address the root causes of human rights and environmental issues, which are mostly economic, a due diligence system will not suffice, no matter how good it is. So that conversation and putting it at the forefront is very important. I thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Melissa. In the interest of time, I think we'll close. I know a lot of our registered guests are sitting quite scattered, but we do have a healthy representation still. Now I'd like to welcome Director ITC, Mr. Esepion, on this is also his inaugural visit to Pakistan. So we welcome him, we thank him for coming and joining our team in GRASP in Pakistan. And now over to him for his concluding remarks, please.
And the other one. This is when you give old people new tools. So thank you very much for coming here today, and for those that stayed. Really, as you might know, the International Trade Center is a joint agency of the United Nations and the World Trade Organization promoting SMEs. And what we have been doing today is to helping SMEs to penetrate the world market. I would really want to thank my colleagues, Melissa Mukanga, Frederick Derlot, also Martina Bosola, that was in the meeting but didn't speak. She's one of our great experts in trade. But also our GRASP team, led by Mr. Robert Skidmore, working with Irshad Ali, who works really in our office in Islamabad, Rizwan Tariq, who is really in the office here in Sindh, Jansen Khan, that is leading the office in Balochistan, Analia Noor, that has helped me understand a lot of what's going on. We have been working here in Pakistan, supporting 30 Southern SMEs. Over 4 years, working in 22 districts with 10 partners. We're working at the macro level, basically doing policy reforms, working with the federal government, working with the government of Sindh and the government of Balochistan, and we have drafted 40 acts, regulations, and policies, some of which address the needs that have been explained here. But we also work at meso level with SMEDA, and the Chambers of Commerce. I had the privilege of going to the Chamber of Commerce of Karachi and Islamabad, and at micro level with TRDP, PPIF, and other partners giving grants directly to SMEs. And you will find some of the SMEs here. We have 65 SMEs here exposing, and we're really proud of them. Why do we do this? Because we believe in Chinese philosophy that says it is better if you give a man a fish, he will eat one day. If you teach him how to fish, he will eat forever. So this is what we're doing here together with you, teaching people how to fish, teaching people how to trade. In quality, whatever we do to increase the quality of Pakistani exports will enhance the health of the Pakistani family, because we are really enhancing quality, better service, and better products in Pakistan. What we're doing to assist you to adhere to corporate responsibility due diligence standards is also in favor of the world. People might say that some of these new rules are non-tariff barriers to trade or technical barriers to trade. We do not want to get into that really, because ITC is an honest broker. We don't judge, we help business continuity. We really want to continue the business because we believe that SMEs are the main provider of wealth and employment in the world. So in this regard, we're really, really proud to work with many partners, like I mentioned, the government, the federal government, government of Sindh, Balochistan, the FAO, that is our brother in the United Nations systems, TRDP, PIF, SMEDA, and definitely our main donor, the European Union, in this program. The European Union is helping us to support SMEs from Pakistan to penetrate the world market. This market doesn't always have to be the European one. I have met with companies here that are exporting in Central Asia. They are exporting to Uzbekistan through a fair that was supported by my colleagues. ITC is maybe a well-kept secret in development, but we have a state-of-the-art information that is supplied by my colleagues, especially technicians like my colleagues are presented today. We have digital platforms that help develop policies. We are working closely with institutions in the world in training. We have done a lot of training with the FAO here. We are supporting really business climate reforms and overall dialogue. We believe that public-private sector dialogue is at the center of development, and this is what we're doing in this stage. While we might think that some of the rules derived, again, like I was saying, seek to impede trade, at the end of the day, we have to protect the earth as well. And whatever we can do, today they offered me a plastic straw with a grape juice, and I refused a plastic straw. It was a small gesture, but I believe that all of us have to make a change in consumption. In any case, I don't want to be too long. The main thing that I want to tell you is two things: that ITC, under the leadership of Mrs. Pamela Cook-Hamilton, our Executive Director, is working under the guidance of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Gutierrez, and with Madame Ngozi, Executive Director of the World Trade Organization, promoted sustainable global development, mainly SDG 1, which is no poverty. Everything that we do seeks to reduce poverty. A person, by reducing poverty, we reduce migration, we reduce crime, and we reduce all the things that come associated with that. And also SDG 8, which is decent working conditions. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to consume a product or a service that has led to the exploitation of another human being. Any case, thank you very much. Shukriya, Nord, and I'm trying to learn Kurd. Oh, and I dropped something. In any case, thanks a lot for your patience and time and for supporting my bad English.
Thank you, everyone. We really hope you're going to join the Grass Pavilion in Hall 4. We have 46 amazing business stalls there. They're ready to sell. They're ready to showcase what they have from their regions. So Hall 4, the Grass Pavilion. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Stay tuned.
I think they are having their cookies right now. Cookies are being served.
No, still. This is Maluma, Chef Maluma
Okay,
recipe.
okay.
Please, guys, bring the cookies for our guests. This is the final recipe for today.
Final recipe, yes.
Yes. And always the final things, the greatest things. The ice cream spread. So Chef Ibrahim, he will serve the second pan cookies with vanilla ice cream. Spoon. Yes. Chef Ibrahim? Yes. The scoop? Please.
All yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all to give me just a chance.
What do you like? Did you like it?
Anas, can I have you on stage here, please? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zahra, for being such a great co-host for the day one.
And sorry if I annoyed you with you.
We still have a discussion, panel discussion, if I can request.
Make video.
So, Zahra, Alhamdulillah, day one is almost 90% completed.
Yes,
We
thanks,
got the last panel discussion from Flavor Forum, and inshallah we will wrap our day one.
Yes.
People can enjoy on the stalls and area, but we will be done after the panel discussion from the stage area.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Have a nice night, enjoyable, and I hope to see you tomorrow with the same energy,
Yes.
or maybe the even better one.
Yes, sure. And come to eat your cookies.
Yes.
No, he will take from this one. Chef Ibrahim.
I would like to request my technical team to please arrange
Nice.
the chairs in front of the stage for panel discussion.
Okay.
I would like to repeat to please arrange the chair arrangement in front of the stage. Thank you.
Yalla. I will give you from this one. Fast. I need coffee. Arabic coffee.
It's 5 p.m. p.m.
Well, hello. My name is Ayhan Şentürk, and I am the Business Development Manager for Profen Defense Technologies. We're a Turkish company. Our company was founded back in 1995, and our core expertise and experience is in satellite communication systems. So that's satellite antennas, satellite ground stations, and those are the main products that we're promoting at this exhibition. So we can design and build all the way from 65 centimeters small satellite dishes, man-packed terminals, all the way up to 7.3 meter big ground stations. So as I said, that's our main expertise. That's where our main experience comes from. But we're also an engineering company. We do systems integration. We have a very good software team supporting us in our activities. We have a materials science team helping us with the design of our antennas, and we deliver turnkey solutions to our customers. It's our first time in Pakistan attending an exhibition, and it's been a very fruitful period for us. I mean, we've been very busy for the past 2 days. We're busy today as well, and we're very happy about it. We're very happy about it. During the COVID period, we've been having a lot of online meetings or telephone meetings with our contacts in Pakistan. So as I said, it's our first time in Pakistan, and it's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure to be able to talk face to face with our contacts, with our customers in Pakistan. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything, for your hospitality. It's been an honor to be here, and we look forward to improving our relationship with Pakistan. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Defense Minister, Raja Muhammad Asif, Excellencies, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It is a matter of great honor for me to extend a very warm welcome to the Defense Minister, Federal State Ministers, Secretaries, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, galaxy of senior serving and retired officers from our forces, our guests from national media, business group and government parties. We are grateful to the Honorable Defense Minister for placing the occasion to formally launch International Defense Exhibition and Seminar 2022, better known by its acronym IDEAS. Ladies and gentlemen, we entered into the International Defense Exhibition industry by organizing the first IDEA in the year 2000 at Expo Center Karachi with 125 international exhibitors and 150 foreign delegates. During the last 2 decades, IDEA has grown steadily in space, volume, exhibitor, and foreign delegates. In IDEA 2018, we had a record participation of 524 exhibitors and 231 delegates representing 44 countries. And we are lucky that General Ahmed is here, who was the DG then, and we had a record participation across the world. The opportunity to accelerate the IDEA got adversely affected when IDEA 2020 has to be rescheduled due to the COVID, which was one of the worst catastrophes of our living. World in general, and Pakistan in particular, fought with courage and determination. COVID is still not over, but we have learned how to live with it. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to share that the 11th edition of IDEA is scheduled from 15 to 18 November 2022, the year of 75th celebration of independence of Pakistan. What a proud moment. Despite a gap of 4 years, we have received a booking for more than 70% of the available space till to date. Needless to say that IDEA 2022 will be much bigger in size and stature than ever before, inshallah. We are also in the process of extending an invitation to the defense delegation of around 85 countries and expect to receive positive response from the honorable invitees. IDEA has established itself as an attractive and grand venue to promote mutual understanding, trust, friendship, and cooperation. In this regard, Pakistan's defense industry and vendor industry offer a great opportunity to the defense industry of the developed world. Ladies and gentlemen, it presents Pakistan's large defense industry to the outside world by showcasing Pakistan's defense production capability in the conventional realm, aimed at exploring ways and means of partnership in defense production through joint ventures, outsourcing, and cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to share the vision of IDEA, which is twofold. On one hand, it aims at increasing space for joint cooperation between Pakistan public and private enterprises with their regional and global partners, while on the other hand, it is meant to enhance the possibilities of public-private partnership, providing a unique opportunity to our friends from friendly countries to visit Pakistan, sit together, interact with each other, collaborate, cooperate to build defense ties, and find solutions to the problem confronting the region and the world. I wish to make a special mention of Ministry of Commerce as well as the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan for their all-out support and availability of Expo Center Karachi as a venue for the IDEA's 2022. I would also like to thank Ministry of Communication and Director General for Pakistan Post for according approval for issuance of commemorative postage stamp on 14th of August 2022, signifying the holding of 11th edition of IDEA in 75th year of celebration of independence of Pakistan. May I also mention that the Government of State and Karachi District Administration have always been forthcoming and very supportive of holding this mega event in Karachi. I would also like to thank Badar Expo Solution, our event organizer, for his untiring efforts and wholehearted support. Ladies and gentlemen, in the end, I would like to thank all the worthy guests for accepting the invitation to attend this ceremony. Honorable Defence Minister, we are personally grateful for your presence on this occasion. I thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Pakistan Zindabad.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت سيدنا محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد
اے اللہ اس دعوت کامل اور تا قیامت قائم ہونے والی نماز کے رب تو محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کو جنت میں نمایاں مقام فضیلت اور بلند درجہ عطا فرما اور انہیں اس مقام محمود پر فائز فرما جس کا تو نے ان سے وعدہ فرمایا ہے اور قیامت کے دن ہمیں ان کی شفاعت نصیب فرما بے شک تو وعدے کے خلاف نہیں فرماتا
So my speech today will be about artificial intelligence and its evolution in the defense market. If we can please have the slides. So in the and like there the manufacturing industry, for example, or in the broad sense, the sense the world